So team, welcome all to the web services testing orientation session around web services and SoapUI. We wanted to present this between me and Uday from ITeLearn on what it is all about. Why is it essential to you as an IT professional and so on? And in fact, before we started out, Uday and I were debating. I asked Uday, hey Uday, why did you put this image of this Golden Gate Bridge? And he gave me a solid explanation, which I will give it to him to help me further with. But primarily he's saying that it is a bridge that every IT professional will need to cross someday. It is something that all of us will need to use, will be using, or have already been using. So what it says is it's a base for a lot of activities that we do. It's predominantly a great skill to acquire, to keep, and to use to get yourself a potentially good career in that area. So let me introduce you all to Uday. Uday has joined with ITeLearn as one of our co-trainers under the Teach initiative. He brings about 8 years of industry experience. He's been working with many global organizations, helping them in their web services, testing, automation, and so on. Almost 7.5 years solely dedicated towards testing itself. But again, I will let Uday spend a few more minutes introducing himself and walking us through the next slides. Uday, on to you, please, from now on.
Hey, thanks, Karthik, and hi, everyone. Thanks, one and all, for putting in your time to join this webinar. So, as Karthik had introduced myself, I'm Uday. I do carry 8 years of experience, and around 7.5 years goes into QA, and whole into automation as well. So, having said that, let's quickly move on to the session. So, the agenda is quite simple for today. It just talks about what is web services testing and how does it help me and what should I have. When I say I or me, I'm talking about the participants who are opting to pursue a career in web services testing, I mean to say. So, and then finally we'll be looking at, can I opt it? Karthik, can we move on to the next slide, please?
Sure, Uday. For some reason, the GoToMeeting gave me kind of a, this is something new with the latest version of GoToMeeting, and it is kind of throwing me out sometimes. In fact, everyone. Let me try and get back to the presentation. Give me a quick second, please. But can you start to continue to talk about?
Sure thing. Basically, the next slide talks about an introduction. It gives a brief intro about web services and web services testing. So first of all, let me make you understand what a web service is. A web service, in the crude terms, is nothing but a service over the web. A service over the web. When I say a service over the web, as we all know in our day-to-day life, like we are, it's not that we use internet, we get addicted, and without internet, we are not there. So a service over the internet using the HTTP protocol. When we say internet, there are many protocols, and using the HTTP protocols, if you make a service available, we call it as a web service. And to keep it simple, you request for something over the internet, and you get it back, and you get the response. That's what all web service is. It's a service over the web. If we could take a simple example like Facebook. Facebook, again, I don't think I need an introduction I need to give an introduction for Facebook. So Facebook, there are many features in Facebook. If you pick one feature like adding contacts from other mail IDs of us, like say if I'm using Yahoo Mail or Gmail, and for the first time I'm getting connected to Facebook, it will give me an option saying that, hey, do you want to get all your contacts from Yahoo Mail or Gmail or some other mail to Facebook contacts? And if you say yes, all the contacts will be pulled to Facebook. So what is it happening behind the screens? Yahoo, it's a different application altogether. And in Facebook, it's a different application altogether. Yahoo may be developed on Java or some Oracle technologies, whereas Facebook can be a Microsoft technology. So there should be something, a common understanding between these two, which can interchange the data, or else there should be some intermediary mechanism which can, help these two different applications, heterogeneous applications I'm talking about, to communicate. So that something is nothing but your web service. Okay. Thanks, Karthik, for moving on to the next slide. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, not only the contacts feature, there are many other features which does act as services. It's something like you are talking to multiple systems, and the communication is happening between multiple systems and multiple heterogeneous systems. When I say multiple systems, I'm talking about multiple heterogeneous. When I say heterogeneous, I mean to say that the applications are being developed on different platforms and different technologies, but still they are able to communicate. I'll quote a simple example. Let's take a guy is there who does no Chinese and no other languages, and one more guy is there who does no French and no other languages. So they have to communicate between each other. Can they? The guy who knows Chinese and no other language, he'll be able to communicate in Chinese only, and whereas it comes to the French, he can do it only in French. So how can the communication happen? Let's talk about a translator who does know both Chinese and French, who understands Chinese and can translate that into French. So this translator which we are talking about is nothing but your web service. He's providing a service which can help the communication between a Chinese and a French guy, understanding Chinese and translating that to French, and the other way, vice versa. So this is a service that is being provided for the translation thing. Similar way, if you look at the Facebook, which we had quoted the earlier example, contacts. So we are talking, the communication is happening between Facebook and that of other mails, other mailing apps, let me be precise. So the communication happens between heterogeneous applications and heterogeneous technologies. That's where the web service comes into picture. A web service will help the communication between different apps. And testing a web service. It's one type of testing again, because if you could Google, types of testing, you can see security testing, performance testing, usability testing. Likewise, web services does fall into one of the categories. And it acts as a base to many testing types as well. So let me emphasize on this point, acting as a base to many testing types. How does it act as a base? If you look at a simple web service, as I said before, it's a service over the web, and it acts as a communication channel between multiple heterogeneous systems. So basically it's loosely coupled and distributed. When I say loosely coupled, the rules that we set on it are minimal, and it can be accessed, developed by one company and can be accessed by n number of companies or n number of applications or n number of people. So not only we do some functional testing on this, we also do security testing of web services. We also do load testing of web services. It's something like one big application which does have everything versus small applications which constitute that big application. So when you talk about web services testing, you will be doing not only the functional testing, but also security testing, but also load testing. You will be knowing the basics of them. So this is how you Karthik, can we move to the next? Oh, yeah. So this is
Sorry,
how
Uday. So
we can say that.
yeah.
Not a problem, Karthik. I'm just trying to make them understand, the web services testing, how does it, acts as a base to many testing types. The thing is that not only we'll be coming across the functional testing terminologies or functional testing activities, but also we'll be touching upon the security testing aspects from the web services standpoint, where some of the generic testing, generic security testing aspects will be covered. And also we'll be talking about the performance testing of the web services, which again gives us a base for the generic performance testing of the applications. That's how it helps us. And the last point, spine of many apps. Let's take different domains that we see in our day-to-day life. When I say domain, I can talk about insurance. There are n number of insurance organizations, or you can say banks. Wells Fargo is there, Bank of America, Citibank. Any application that you talk about in a banking sector or in insurance sector, automobile sector, whatever it is, they are using the web services. As of today, if you take any big or any large application, and they are using the web services at the back end. And web service is something, it acts as a middleware, what we call it as a middleware. It's a communication channel between, as we have discussed earlier. It's an intermediary thing which will help the two applications to communicate. So that's where it acts as a spine for many applications. So having said that, we'll move on to the next slide, Karthik.
Sure, Uday. So, and before I move on to the next slide, I just want the audience to get a couple of important points here. Number one is the fact that web services is such a thing. It's like it does not necessarily be as big or huge in terms of a size of a functional testing or a regression testing, but it still is very critical. It by itself has many things just because of the applications that are external to itself that each of these functional portions touch and how critical they play overall in our current role. And I'm not an expert, and that's the reason Uday is here today, but I think we're trying to drive that point home, that the importance of web services testing is paramount if you go to any IT organization today. In fact, I have not seen even a single IT organization in the last few years which does not talk about web services. I may have 25 people as a testing organization. In that, I may have at least 5-6 people as web services testing itself. But again, there's no organization that I've seen, at least in recent times, which does not have web services testing, API testing, backend testing, and all that as part of it. So, Uday, did I make sense what I just said?
You rightly said, Karthik. Yes, it is predominantly taking over the IT sector when it comes to testing. And you rightly said, whatever may be the size of the application, yes, web service testing is there. And I would like to add something on that. Actually, there's a myth. There was a myth, rather I would say there was a myth, which is no more, that it's a white box testing. But it's no more a white box testing. We'll get to see that when we go on to the last slide. So Karthik, you can take it over.
All right, great. So primarily the next few slides are something that I wanted to run through just because of the participants and the people who come to ITeLearn with an intent to master courses, master these areas. So I wanted to show you what it is that you could use, how it is in terms of the job trends and so on, and what can you take home. Is it even important for you to learn? Is it important for you to take as a career for yourself? So for example, team, you could be someone who's absolutely beginner in QA, okay, who's trying to make an entry, but believe that web services is a great skill to add. Or you are in the testing area for a few years, you've been working, but then you realize that within your company or other projects, there's a lot of requirement on web services. Or you believe that Web services will take you forward into the next level of your career. And that's what the comparison is all about. In fact, I didn't do a comparison with other software testing tools, but predominantly what this slide shows is since the last 5-6 years, there's been a very steady progress in the number of job postings. This slide, my friends, is not the actual job postings. This is the percentage of job postings compared to others. What that means is if this job posting has been increasing, which means that other job postings have been going down. So overall, while the market has not been doing very well, we've seen that there's been a steady increase in web services testing job postings by itself. All right, that's the intent of why we showed you that. The second slide talks about the salary range. Now again, this is debatable. This is highly dependent on the kind of expertise that you bring. Are you web services only with very little background or just a year or two of experience? Or are you a web services professional with about 5-6 years or 8 years experience that you're trying to bring to the table? But primarily what you're looking at is what kind of a salary ranges are there for people in this. And that's the indicator of around a 90K ballpark number, which is very around what you will see for a QTP or Selenium. And this image here is also saying that as an index starting from, let's say, 90K, we've been going up and down, up and down. It's still been playing around the same number, but we've gone higher more recently. Here's another slide from Indeed, which talks about how are the job trends, and these are absolute ones, not comparison, but absolute job trends for a search term like SoapUI. SoapUI, and which Uday will explain in a few minutes.
Kartik?
Yes, Uday.
Would like to pitch in here.
Sure.
So SoapUI, it's a testing tool which we'll be using for testing web services. So you might wonder, earlier we did show the job trends and salary trends for web services testing, and now that we are saying SoapUI. Yes, if you could see, if you are good at web services testing, it's not a mandate that you should be good at SoapUI. There are proprietary tools, there are tools from HP Quick Test Professional that support web services testing, and we have one from IBM, and we have JMeter, which the developers will be using. But predominantly, if you look at on a comparative basis, SoapUI is a freeware, and it does take 80% of the market stake when it comes to the web services testing. So web services testing along with SoapUI will help you not only to break down the interviews in or else not only to help you pursue the career in web services testing, as well as you have the SoapUI arena as well. So Kartik, you can. Kartik, it's over to you.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Uday. Hey guys, is my audio any different, or is it okay for you guys all? Because I just changed the location because of the power thing for me. But again, thanks Uday, thanks for pitching in. Again, as I was saying, like Uday was trying to mention, SoapUI, predominantly one of the most popular tools for web services automation, automating certain portions of how you do testing on web services. And what you see here is the significant increase since mid of 2009 on the SoapUI as a tool. And this has led me, in fact, to get into that, hey, how can we get that as a training curriculum within ITeLearn itself? Okay. The next slides are trying to compare it with how you will see the SoapUI, if you add it on, what's the kind of market from a salary perspective. And not only US as a market that we primarily focus on, but even UK and other areas, you will see there's a lot of focus, a lot of requirements that keep floating around on SoapUI especially. So that's about the background of what you will see on SoapUI and various other uh, web services, job requirements, and so on. And I just want to get you the feeling of what you're looking into as a career. So Uday, back to you from here.
Thanks, Karthik. So this slide basically talks about what should I have. In the sense, basically, if I want to pursue a career, if I want to get into web services testing as a career, or if I want to crack an interview for a web services testing, what should I be having? The basic thing is that you should have the functional testing concepts, at least basics. Added to that, you should be having working knowledge of XML. So XML again is itself a technology. It's a huge area which you need to mark and which you need to, no need to master XML, but still you should be having working knowledge of XML. Because as I said before, web service acts as a channel of communication between heterogeneous platforms and technologies. So you're trying to send the data between heterogeneous applications. So that will happen only through XML. Yes, there are other technologies which use it to support, but XML is far more better than anything else. So XML is compared earlier to HTTP. HTTP, it's again a markup language. XML is nothing but extensible markup language. And we have HTML, which basically used for web development. And it's again a markup language. But HTML is predominantly to text, whereas XML is lightweighted data carrier. So working knowledge of XML is a must for anyone who wants to get into web services testing. And the second point, and the third point, working knowledge of web services. Yes, you have to have that. You need to know what a web service is. You need to know how to do the web services testing. And you need to know what a web service framework is. When I say framework, you'll be talking about the SOA, so a lot of terminologies come into the picture. So the working knowledge of web services is a must. And working knowledge of SoapUI tool. It's kind of a booster to your web services testing skill. Because as I said before, SoapUI, it predominantly takes over the web services testing arena when we talk about the tools. Yes, there are other tools, but SoapUI does give you that ease of use. If you are a novice, if you don't know anything about web services, but still SoapUI will, if you go through the documentation that is available with SoapUI, you'll get to know what is it, and at the minimum, you'll be able to do some sort of functional testing on web services. That easy it is to learn and to use as well. And the second part is that it's like what it says on its website. If you could get time, after this you can just browse for SoapUI. What it says is it's a Swiss knife. As we know, like a Swiss knife is used to multiple purposes. And as I mentioned earlier, SoapUI tool will help us not only do the functional testing of web services. There are other areas as well which it covers. It helps us to do the load testing. We have one component added to the SoapUI called LoadUI, which comes along with SoapUI, which will help us to do the load testing on web services. And added to that, the web services security is a key thing. When I say security, again we need to go to the definition of web services. It's like a communication channel between heterogeneous. It's a loosely coupled distributed system. When I say loosely coupled, there are not many rules around that. So it's prone to security threats. So a security testing is a must for a web service, which can easily done by a SoapUI tool, using a SoapUI tool. So working knowledge of SoapUI tool will help you on the top of everything, along with web services and XML, knowledge of XML and some functional testing basic concepts will help you to set your career in web services testing. Kartik, can we move on to the next slide? Thanks, Kartik. So now that we did discuss in the previous slide, like these are all the skill sets, which we need to know, which we need to possess, indeed, to get through the web services, or else to make web services testing as a career. So there might be speculations around, oh, XML, I don't know. Web service, it's a new term for me. SoapUI on the top of that, lot many technologies to learn. No need to worry about that. All that you need is basic computer knowledge. Added to that, some MS Office skills, like you should be good at Excel, and basic software testing concepts will help you. Along with that, will help you to kickstart with web services testing. When I say kickstart, these are nothing but the prerequisites for you to kickstart your career as a web services testing, provided you get trained on web services testing along with SoapUI. So on a blunt note, these are the prerequisites for one to opt for the training. And yes, it's good to have basic XML skills. If you can understand XML, yes, it's surely an added advantage for you. And awareness of web services, the knowledge on web services will help you for sure. Even though you're not good at that, even though you don't have the basic XML skills and the basic knowledge of web services, but still it's good to go, because that's what we will be covering in our curriculum. So the prerequisites, let me just say it again, like basic computer knowledge, MS Office skills, basic software testing concepts are more than enough for you, along with which we will be sharing with you a little while, and enough for you to get your career set in. Kartik, can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. So this is the suggested course content. I'll just walk you through the course. Kartik, it seems you have there a mistake. You need to do a Control Z. A1 is the topic name actually, it's not XX. It seems Kartik had typed something by mistake. Yep, there it is. So we have the column, the topic as one column, and a small description of the topic, what we are going to cover as part of that particular topic. And do we have any assignment for that? Do we work on it? That's what we'll be talking about in the C column. So as I said before, when you look at the prerequisites in the previous slide, we did talk about the prerequisites are basic computer knowledge, MS Office skills, and some basic testing concepts will help you. Added to that, whatever we give here will help you to set your career in web services testing. So having said that, let's move to curriculum. So the first one is what web service? What is a web service? So we'll be looking at until you guys understand what a web service is, because that's the base thing which we need to understand. And we'll be seeing some real-time examples as well. Like we'll take the real-time applications. I'll show you the real-time applications. Like we'll be triggering the web services from our end as a part of the training, and we'll try to understand what that web service will do, and we'll note the data, and we'll compare that to the real-time application. To get a good understanding of this, one simple example, if you look at the stock market, if you could pull, like what we'll do is we'll pull one particular stock of one particular bank, let's say Wells Fargo, through the web service we'll make it, as well as we'll go to the original site of Wells Fargo and we'll compare the data over there. Likewise, we'll take multiple examples to understand what a web service is all about. And the second one is Web Services Framework. As I mentioned earlier, we have a framework around web services. We have some formats and protocols and standards that a web service has to adhere to. We'll be doing a lot of talk on SOAP, XML, and we have something called WSDL, Web Services Description Language. That's what describes your web service. And we have something called Discovery Services, UDDI. So in the consequent topics, what we'll do is we will be emphasizing more on understanding of SOAP and XML as a framework, and we will try to create some schemas as a part of the training. That's what you can see in the assignment column. Even though it's an optional, when I say it's optional, I'll be creating the schemas. I'll make you understand what a schema is and how schemas are created as a part of the training, and there will be an assignment for you guys to work on the same. So the next one is WSDL. WSDL is, as I said before, it describes the web service. So there are certain terms which we need to come across, which we'll come across, like port types, binding operations. So we'll get a good understanding of what a WSDL is, how a web service is being described is what we learn as a part of the WSDL, and how the WSDLs are created. So this is the foundation kind of thing for the entire web services, because it does describe how a web service should be. So we will be creating WSDLs as a part of the assignment, and I'll also show you how to create a WSDL, and we will be going through each and every line of a WSDL. And the next one is Discovery. So as I said before, just to understand what Discovery is, web service, again, it's available over the service, available over the web. So there should be a repository where we can place our web services. And I told you this, and I mentioned this earlier, saying that, you know, hey, web service is a thing which is being developed by one particular company or one particular organization and can be used by any organization or any person, provided if that particular entity has necessary or the minimal access, and that access and the storage of web services will be covered as a part of the discovery. So there are multiple organizations like Microsoft, IBM, Google, and many other who got teamed up and who came up with a centralized repository where you can deposit your web services and make them available to your clients or make them available across the World Wide Web with certain limitations and access. So whatever we discuss up till discovery is like the foundation that you need to understand as a part of web services testing. And also along with those topics, we will be discussing the basic testing concepts as well from the functional testing standpoint. And I'll show you how the web services can be tested with proprietary tools and also manually. And then we move on to the web services testing tools. As I said before, in this particular session, we will be talking about the different testing types. Not only functional testing, we also talk about performance testing, security testing. And when I say performance or security testing, we are talking about performance or security testing of web services. How is it different from that of the performance testing of a complete app? That we'll be looking at as a part of this session. web services testing tools. And also, I'll be introducing you to SoapUI. We have something called SoapUI Pro. SoapUI is a freeware which we can straight away download and use it. And SoapUI Pro does come up with a license cost, but the differences between SoapUI Pro and SoapUI we'll pretty much discuss in that session. Why SoapUI sort of things, and we'll make a quick comparison between the other tools in the market like HPQTP, which does have an add-in for web services testing, and JMeter, which was used to be precise earlier for web services testing predominantly. And how did SoapUI take over the market, and how is it good when compared to the other tools? That comparison is also done, like we'll be discussing pretty much in our session there. And the next one is SoapUI Basics. We'll move on to the tool, how to install it, understand the SoapUI IDE, and we'll be creating a sample project. This is where you'll be working from this area. You'll be working on the projects to understand better the tool. And the next session talks about the functional testing. The next two sessions does talk about the functional testing. Added to whatever we had we are going to come across the functional testing concepts in our earlier sessions. Added to that, we will be talking more functional aspects here, testing aspects, and we will be knowing how to create a test suite. Added to the test suite, we will be having what is an assertion. It's kind of a validation, how to do it through XML validations and again script assertions. That's what we cover. And as a part of the functional testing, again, we'll be looking at the test execution and debugging. So these two combined, if you club them, it makes a testing life cycle, which we talk about when we talk about the functional testing. So in a way, we'll be covering the functional testing aspects as well, and we will be looking at each and every activity in each phase of testing life cycle. So next we'll move on to the databases and test data. So how SoapUI will help us to do the data-driven testing. And how to interact with the databases. That's what Karthik was explaining earlier, back-end testing, how to do that. And there's a beautiful feature which comes along with SoapUI is working with mock services. You can create your own services using this tool. That's what it is. You can mock the services. So we'll have a couple of sessions on that, and we'll be working on a project exclusively for mocking the services, which will help you better understand all the concepts. And next is test automation. Whilst we talk about automating the web services testing in all the concepts, here we will be looking at explicitly running from the command line and also integrating with other tools. Yes, SoapUI Pro does come up with an option to automate your web services testing. However, if you don't want to go for a licensed version, you can opt for integrating SoapUI with other tools like Maven. So I'll just walk you through, or else if time permits, we'll work extensively. If time permits, we'll work extensively on integrating the other tools with other tools. Or else we'll look at within the time frame for sure. We'll look at the automating the web services testing using SoapUI running from the command line is one thing which we'll be concentrating more, and also Maven is one thing. Added to that, if time permits, we'll look at the integration with other tools as well. And yes, for every testing lifecycle, we have this test reporting thing. And yes, SoapUI has a beautiful feature for test reporting. It does give you all the graphs and trends and all that, whatnot, whatever you ask. Yes, it does have it with SoapUI when it comes to test reporting. And then we move on to the advanced concept like security testing. We'll discuss a high-level overview of security testing first, and then I'll show you how to work with the security tests. I'll explain you how to work with the security tests, taking a web service, and how to do the security testing, and what are the aspects that you need to take into consideration. A little bit of hacking concepts will also come into picture here, and how does it is related to the security testing of apps. How does a web services security testing is related to the security testing of an application. That we'll be emphasizing more on this in this session. And I will also tell you how does it help, if at all, if you want to master yourself in the security testing arena, how does this particular tool and how does this particular session will help you to get into that. We'll also be discussing that as a part of the session. And yes, as I said before, there is an option called Load UI, which comes with SoapUI Pro. It will help us to do the load testing. Not only to create and run the test, it will simulate the loads, and you can even pull beautiful statistics and export them to make your client better understanding what you're doing. So we'll be having a couple of sessions, 2 sessions on load testing as well. And again, similar to the security testing, if at all, if you want, say down the line, if you're working on web services for a quite good amount of time, say 2 years, and then you want to move on to a different area, testing type, to a different testing type like security testing or load testing, so you can move. Not only how to do the load testing, not only I'll show you how to do the load testing, but also I'll help you to understand how you can move on to load testing of applications versus load testing on web services. And once we are done with that, we will move on to the plugins. So SoapUI does help us to write our own pieces of code. It can be on Java or .NET, whatever it may be. You can write your own piece of code for your particular purpose, and you can integrate that to SoapUI. That's the beauty of SoapUI. That's one big feature, where Soap tools. And last but not the least is Groovy Scripting. Java scripting will also do, but Groovy Scripting predominantly took over the stake. It will help you to tweak the scripts or enhance the scripts. There are many library files, or you can say packages available in the library, Groovy library, which you can directly import rather than learning. And we'll be looking at those libraries which we'll be coming across in our day-to-day life of web services testing in detail. So in a whole, once we are at the end of the session, what we'll be getting is, for sure, if you could work on the assignments along with me, for sure you'll be able to support a minimum of 1.5 year experience web services testing. What I want to say is, yes, I'm as good as a test engineer who does have 1.5 years of experience. That's what we can proudly say, if at all, if we could follow well and as per the assignments that we have quoted here. So having said that, that's a brief intro of what we are going to present and what we are going to discuss as a part of the curriculum. It's over to you, Karthik. Karthik, you can take it on. It seems Karthik is on mute. Karthik? In the meanwhile, maybe you can type your questions if you have any. Karthik, it's on to you.
All right. Sorry there, can you hear me?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, sorry, I had a very bad throat that's come up. So let me see. So the audience is practically looking at what kind of a suggestions you have going forward. I know you walk them through the course contents and other things that are coming up along. So one of the questions that is coming up is there a difference in the software testing life cycle and a web service testing life cycle?
I should say no, because if you could see the row number 9 and 10 here, this does cover each and every phase that we come across if basic software testing life cycle. The planning and analysis, and you create your test scripts or test cases, whatever it may be, and then you go for reviewing the same thing. Planning and analysis, test design, test execution, and defect reporting. The only piece we will be missing here is the defect reporting, which is not included. But as if time permits, I'll show you the defect reporting as well.
Sure, sounds good.
So it's no different from the basic testing lifecycle. I think that's what, in a nutshell, it is.
All right. The other thing is some of these tools are more licensed tools, like SoapUI Pro. Would we be helping in terms of installations and the licensing and all that? So my answer is yes, and primarily what we would help you with the structured details about how you can install the available trial versions of these tools. Let me see for further questions, please. So regarding the training and all the team, we're going to come back to you. We're going to present the entire details. So please, if you're watching this video, make sure that you are registered on our website so that we are in a position to be able to send things back to you. So there are other technical questions again, Uday, that are coming, like, for example, what's the response, what's the request? I'm sure that is something you can look into as you go along. There are questions back in terms of what the expectations are from an individual. Should they be at an expert level, for example, in XML, or at a beginner level? Is that something you can answer, please?
Sure, Karthik. So we did see a slide earlier which does talk about a prerequisite. What all you need to come to the training is basic computer knowledge, MS Office skills. When I say MS Office skills, more will be emphasizing on Excel, and some testing concepts are more than enough for you to kickstart with the training. Reminding the rest of it, what you need to set your career, will be explained or will be taught in the trainings.
All right, sounds good.
Hope I had answered the question.
Yes. The other question is, are we going to cover RESTful services as well?
Yes, I didn't mention it here, but not extensively. We will be having that as well.
And what kind of a duration do we have for the course itself? How many hours will it take to kind of deep dive into all these points?
So basically what we have placed here is for 20 sessions. It might go 1-2 sessions on the top of that, depending upon the trainees there. If at all, if someone, as we could see the earlier question, it does talk about RESTful services. Likewise, if something comes in on the fly, if someone requests for something, yes, it will go 2 or more sessions more. But basically, it's confined to 20 sessions. It could be something around 20 to 25.
Sounds good, because I also know that since they're project based, sometimes it could exceed the time frame we're looking at. So I think a couple of last questions before we move on is one, if there's a knowledge already on QTP and Selenium, will that help in any way to master or learn web service testing?
I should say no, because QTP and Selenium if you look at QTP, it does have the web add-ins. You have a web add-in for web applications, a Power Builder add-in for Power Builder. Likewise, you have a web service add-in for web services testing.
Right.
It does help you if it's a NES, if at all, if you have some experience in using QTP for web service, but not extensively. But it will not help you extensively, but it will help if at all, if you have some working knowledge, some experience on how QTP is used to web services testing.
Awesome, great. Uday, I'm sure there'll be more questions that will come along, but we'll open the channel on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/ITeLearn. And team participants, if you're listening into this as a video session, please ensure that you subscribe to our newsletter on the website so we can inform you more in terms of when the session can start and so on. But again, at the moment, we are looking to launch a full-fledged training towards the end of the month. Please make sure that you have your information on our website so that we are able to invite you to be able to attend and participate in the initial demo webinars. So at this point, thank you so much all for attending. I know it's a Friday evening and Saturday morning for people in different zones of the world. So I appreciate your time. Me and Uday sincerely thank you all once again for being here, and we'll make sure that we have this video up on ITeLearn.com where you can go back and start viewing it. Uday, once again, thank you so much for being there, doing it for us, and we'll look forward for the next steps.
Sure, Karthik. Thank you, and thank you all. Thank you, team, for being here.